Back here on the Steam Room, where the only rule for our guests is that you leave your towel on. That's it. Anything else goes when you're a guest on the Steam Room. And we've got a special guest. A pleasure to welcome a woman with uncommon grace and elegance and talent. And you will see her on TNT NBA Tuesday, along with Adam Lefkoe and Shaquille O'Neal and D. Wade. Candace Parker joins us in the Steam Room. How are you, kid?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be on here with you all. I watch and support, just FYI. You know, Chuck calls me out, but I actually do watch and support you guys.
So are you a loyal steamer?
I am.
Nice. And a fellow Peloton rider, Chuck? You still haven't gotten on the bike, but you need to?
So we were having a conversation. So how did you find out about Peloton? When did you said that's the way you train now?
Well, honestly, it was after my first NCAA eating in the green room with you, and I gained a little bit of weight. And so I needed to get in shape going into the season. And the Peloton. So I was even the Peloton before the pandemic. And I started trying to work off the Chuck weight. You know?
I just want you to know there was not a lot of eating going on. That's when you first started working with us, and you said, and I remember your exact words, "I hear you like to drink. I want to challenge you." And everybody around you says, "That's probably not a good idea. I'm not worried about Chuck. I can handle Chuck." And we had a little drinking contest.
Oh, how did that turn out?
Did I lose? First of all, EJ, who do you believe? Because do you think I would just walk up to Chuck and
Ernest's been drinking with me a lot more, so he probably know. I'm pretty damn sure I won the drinking contest.
Who do I believe in general terms, or who do I believe in this story?
No, in drinking terms.
You would have your work cut out for you there, Candace.
Listen, all I know is I didn't lose. The bar closed. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, so the score was tied, and the lights came on.
I will say that
ball game.
We knew we had a keeper then.
Yeah.
I said, she's going to be fun to work with for the next few years. Yeah. And it exactly played out like that.
Hey, look, I know it's too late to be saying Happy New Year, but Happy New Year to you. And what a 2021 it was for you. Man alive. There were just a lot of things happening in your life. One of those was the championship with the Chicago Sky. And one of those was, look, one of my favorite images of sports or anything was you and your daughter, Layla, after you won the championship. When you look back at that video or the pictures they took, what comes to mind?
Well, it's interesting because we always make decisions together. And so when it was time to make the decision to go to Chicago, we have a picture of us when we won in LA. And it's actually in my office somewhere. I need to find it. And when we agreed to go to Chicago, she's like, "I want another picture like that." And so
there you go.
I think that's what was going through my mind is like, we have another moment. We have another picture. She's been everywhere in the world with me, allowing me to like chase my dreams and live my dreams. And so I'm just so appreciative that she's so supportive and is always there. So I think that moment is special for both of us.
Well, I got a couple questions. Number one, why do you have an office?
Chuck, I work. I'm a businesswoman. I mean, some of us, we can't just, go play golf and, show up to work when we want and things like that. Like we have to have an office, right, EJ?
I'm with you, Candace. I got an office at my house. It looks similar to yours.
Well, first of all, I have an office at my house.
Yeah, but you don't use it.
I do not. And that's why I was asking her the question, how much she use her office?
I use it almost every day.
So I want to ask you this question because I've been in the NBA for 37 years now. And do you think it was better that you went to Chicago late in your career? Because a lot of guys and girls hate playing in their hometown because everybody's always around. You don't get your normal rest. You end up going out too much, and everybody wants tickets. Do you think it was better that you went there late in your career and you everybody's like, "Oh, that's Candace. We've seen her before," and they're not bugging you to death?
Honestly, yes, because I think at 18 years old, like you're ready to just leave and, go and explore on your own. When I went back, I mean, the last time I was at home, I was 18 and I went back at 30 something years old. So it was a lot different. It was a lot different. I think just in terms of the people have changed and coming back with a different perspective. I think we do take home for granted, and we want to go out and we want to explore and things like that. And I got to do that. And then to be able to make the choice to go back home, it all came full circle. I think the ticket requests were still there, but I think my maturity level was a lot better. Probably wouldn't have dealt with it as good. In fact, Chicago came, I think they were they were second that year in the draft. And so the lottery was between basically LA and Chicago. And I must say, I really wanted to go to LA. But to make the choice to go back home to Chicago, I mean, there's nothing like it. I think everybody should have the opportunity to play at home.
Growing up in that area as you did, I know, so you're a Bulls fan, you're an MJ fan. Why was Ron Harper your favorite?
Man, I was always just the biggest Bulls fan. So when I grew up, I was born in 1986. So I was in Chicago from the time they won their first championship on. And, it was like almost every other year was like, hey, we're at Grant Park, celebrating the Bulls. And I just loved that entire team. I fell in love with the team and mostly Ron Harper, just because of his presence, what he brought to the team. And then when we were in the back one time, like he agreed to take a picture with me. And I had that picture on the wall from the time he took it till I left for college. So he's just always been, super nice to me and, would always take the time to take the picture and sign the autograph.
And it's amazing. And I think it brings up a good point. The impact that a player can have. And so, look, being who you are, you can have that same impact. But when a player takes time, and even if it's a photo like that, it is such a special moment for a young person.
Yes, and I think you remember it forever. And when you get to this stage, and I must, Chuck and I, we joke, EJ, we joke, but like watching you all and how you all handle yourself out and take time and talk to people. I've had people come up to tell me stories about them running into you all in restaurants and how you take the time and talk. And that's a moment for people that they'll remember forever. And so I think, sometimes you have to remember when you were a kid, who you looked up to and who inspired you. And I think the Bulls, the entire Bulls inspired me so much. So I came to Turner and I just didn't like certain people like Isaiah Thomas. We were taught we did not like him. And so it took some time to be okay with the Detroit Pistons.
Well, speaking of that, is Shaq as a bigger jackass on Tuesday as he is on Thursday?
He's a little bit more mellowed out. I feel like it's, he comes with a cleaner fit on Tuesdays. So I think he, it's like that youth. I don't know, but D-Wade keeps him in check. Lefko keeps him in check.
You keep him in check.
I try to do my part.
Hey, I've always tell me about Coach Summitt. I mean, obviously she was a great coach. Rest in peace, one of the greatest to ever do it. But what's it like to play for her?
Well, when you play for Coach Summitt, I thought I was going to Tennessee to play for a coach, but really I went to Tennessee and I was able to grow up and have a second mom, to have a teacher, to have a coach, to have, all of these things. And I think the biggest thing that I say, yes, on the court, we won championships, we won a lot of games. But my freshman year, I was injured. I had to redshirt. And I went there and my parents were going through a divorce and it was just a really tough year. I had expected to play and I had to sit out that whole year. And I didn't want to talk to anybody. And so she came to me and she said, my door's open at lunchtime. You're to be here. You don't have to talk. Just sit and eat your lunch in my office. So for the first couple of weeks, I came, didn't talk. And then by about week 4, that was something I look forward to in the day, just going to talk to her. And I think during that time, I really understood, how she is and the way she operates and how much she cares. And I think that's the biggest thing is, Coach Summitt cares about you. So there's so many lessons even today as a mom that I'm using because of her. She hasn't stopped teaching, even though she's gone.
It's interesting. You say, I think it's weird when you're a great player. You talk about your parents getting a divorce. You talk about the stress of being a great player. And then I'm watching these kids today talk about my mental health. And I'm actually kind of torn on the subject because I'm like, yeah, That's what it means to be a great player. You're under stress. You get all the credit, but you get all the blame. How have you been able to navigate the pressures of being great? Because you're in the conversation, obviously one of the greatest women players ever, but if you factor in what you accomplished in college, in the WNBA, you've had one of the longest, most amazing careers. And I'm not just saying that because you're on the podcast. How do you deal with the mental pressure? Like, because I tell people, you got no idea what it's like to be a great player. I said, you get all the credit, but man, you damn sure get all the blame.
I think the biggest step that I had, because, Chuck, I ate, slept, breathed basketball, and I still do, but I do it with the sense of I'm going to go out, I'm going to prepare, I'm going to do what I can, and then I'm going to relinquish the results. And I think that when you live by that way, there's always going to be somebody that has something to say. But to me, I love it because I love the motivation of it. Like, growing up, my dad would just tell me I couldn't do something because he would smile because I would go out and try to bust my ass to do it. So I don't know if people talking about me bothers me. I know what I have to do, and I know what it takes to do that. And you can't lie to yourself. And I think sometimes athletes do that. They make excuses for themselves. They lie to themselves. And I just believe you always know. So you always know when you adequately prepared for a season. When you went out and you did what you were supposed to. And if you're able to do that, then it's like, you can live with it, And so I think that's my biggest thing and my daughter's taught me that. I think it's having other stuff other than just basketball as well. Having a healthy circle.
What's the low point of your basketball career?
I've had 8 knee surgeries. So coming in, I remember I thought I was the best thing ever. At 16 years old, I went up for an offensive rebound and I tore my ACL. And I tore every single thing in my knee. When I got to Tennessee, I came back after 5 months for ACL, and then I went to Tennessee and, I wasn't able to play. So they did a total knee reconstruction my freshman year at Tennessee. And like I said, my parents were going through a divorce and I had just got to college. And so I think that's probably the lowest that I've been, just because I felt like I didn't have anybody. But then I started writing to myself, and I started writing a journal, and I started keeping goals. And I think that that journal has really helped me even now, because, you go through the highs and lows of basketball, and you have to remember when you win, but you also have to remember what you battled through to get to that point. And so I think the low point, writing through that low point and writing to myself, I think has really helped me, because I'm able to reflect now that we won a championship, all that it took to get here.
Do you still have that journal or those journals?
I still have that journal.
Yeah.
I still have it.
How often do you go back to it at a certain, during some kind of circumstance in your life, and go back to, I want to read what I wrote that year that got me through that?
All the time. And, Pat Summitt talks about handle success as you handle failure. And I think that's stuck with me, because I think we're always so hard on ourselves when we fail. And, we kind of forget what it took to get there when we succeed. And so I think that journal reminds me of it, when it's a random January Thursday, to be able to go get on the Peloton and to, work out, because I remember the feeling that we won the championship. Like, how did that feel? But it took all of these days to get there. So I think that journal is a constant reminder to me.
You are in a unique situation right now. Like I'll say, she's in a perfect situation, and it sucks at the same time. Like, you're an older player, obviously. You've had one of the...
Obviously. Hold up.
Yes.
Obviously.
Like, and we all as players go through this, where you're like, man, I just had arguably the greatest year of my life. Should I retire on top of the mountain, but I still want to play? So every jock goes through it. Give me, obviously you're not going to make any groundbreaking decisions on our stupid podcast. Ernest the stupid half. But like, what's
What?
I'm just messing around, just joking. What's the mental process that you're going through right now as far as that goes?
It's interesting because I think people don't want to retire, but they don't want to put in the work to not retire. Like my biggest thing to myself, like my contract to myself is I don't want to cheat the game. Like the game has been too great to me to go in and cheat it. And so if I'm going to play, then I need to be able to go work out and come in shape and come in ready. And I think that's where I'm at right now. I'm really evaluating whether I think one, my body can tolerate it. And two, if like mentally I'm able to, because I think everybody wants to play when the ball is tipped, but nobody wants to do what is necessary to get to the tip.
Yeah, but listen, as a guy who sucked his last 2 years, you don't want to suck either. I mean, because the game gets harder. Obviously, you get older, but like I said, you have that caveat. Like, damn, I had a really, really, really good year, but it's frustrating as a guy who was a great player. I remember my last 2 years in Houston. I was like, these guys suck, and there's nothing I can do about it. And that to me was the most frustrating part, when guys who couldn't play dead were just kicking my ass.
It sucks. And especially when you wake up and you know your body isn't right. I think that's the biggest thing for me is like my body and making sure that I'm able to still beat my daughter, because she's getting to the age now where she's like doesn't remember some of the stuff that I could do back in the day. So I want to make sure that I can still show her like the surprise in her voice that she found out I could dunk. I was like,
Yeah.
like you don't.
You better
really
Google. You said you should tell her. You better Google me.
But then you look at the video and you realize like the video is not HD, so that's a long time ago.
No, it is.
So you start realizing like how much older you're getting. But I think you're right, Chuck. I mean, it's not fun when you're losing to people that if your body was right, you could take them. So I think that's what I'm taking into account right now. I call it citizen workouts. So I'm not professional athlete workouts yet.
Yeah.
And we're going to gauge how my body feels and then we'll make the decision.
We all try to figure out what's next. I mean, you obviously work with us, but even when you retire, you're still going to be a very young lady. What's next for you, if you want to be continual in basketball? What's next for you?
Well, I always want to have a hand in the women's game, in some capacity. I don't want to coach. I will come out and say that patience is a virtue and it's one that I don't have. So I don't think that I would be valuable coaching.
Would you like to run? Would you like to run a team?
Maybe. I've been picking my brother's brain. He's on the GM side of things in Orlando. So I've just been figuring out and seeing what he does. I really want to go into it with an open mind. I love what I do at Turner. Like you always say it all the time. I feel like I have the second best job in the world. One is playing basketball and two is just talking about it. And so I love, hanging out with you all and the NCAA tournament, all of that. So I enjoy that aspect, but I think just more on the business side. Definitely want to stay in sports and, I'm starting a couple companies. So hopefully, I can't stay in one lane, man. My brain, the way it works, I have to do multiple things.
How personal can we get in this conversation?
Let's do it. Let's go.
What was going on in your mind in December when you posted the shot of 2 years ago? Look, you've revealed, I've been married for 2 years.
Yep.
Anya Petrakova.
Correct.
So what told you this is the time? The time is right now to announce that, hey, I've been married to her for 2 years. A baby is on the way. So what was the thought process going in?
I've always been kind of a personal individual. Like I have the same circle of friends and the same circle of people that have been around me. And so really everybody that I know knows her, and she's amazing. She's an amazing individual. She's been my rock, my support system, my biggest, supporter forever. It's just when you have a kid that's coming into the world, I don't want him to ever doubt that I didn't love his mom, or I wasn't putting them first. And so I just felt like it was the way I wanted to do it. I was able to tell the story the way that I wanted to, and the way we wanted to. And she's been an amazing, bonus mom to Layla. We've been extremely fortunate to have her in our lives. And so I just think it wasn't, something where it was an announcement or I'm trying to drop a book or something like that. It was really just an authentic way of just saying that I appreciate her and all she does for us, and that we're so excited to be growing our family.
Well, number one, I'm glad you got to be you. Not that it was in our business. I always tell every time one of my friends, like the last few years, I said, that's really none of our business, but I'm glad you got to say what you wanted to say. So let me ask you a question about this. If you were commissioner of the WNBA, what were some of the things you would do to make it even better?
Well, first and foremost, I think the WNBA has to be the first in the sports league to do things. And by that, I say we try to model our game a lot off of other sports leagues, and I think we're completely different. So honestly, betting is a huge part of the WNBA. And so I think kind of taking that first step, or, taking a big step ahead of the other sports leagues with betting, I think that that's huge. And I know, Chuck, you're huge into that. So
want to be dead broke when I kill over. Don't want to leave none for the family. Hey, I want every dime to be gone when Chuck kills over. Nope, they didn't work to earn it. Not leaving it for him.
Hey. I think that that's one of the major steps, but also, I think we look at the league and the way that it's come together. And I think, to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you go in the history of sports, has there ever been a time where the coaches and GMs make more than the best players?
Wow.
And so I think that's an element of, yes, we are so happy that we're able to attract some of the best coaches and the best GMs. But really, when you're looking at it as a fan and as a player, that formula to me needs to be corrected.
Hey, you know what I was watching last night? And this will give you some idea of the excitement level of my existence on a nightly basis. I was looking at your TED Talk, and I'm thinking, okay, here's Candace, who has been on every stage. She's on TV. But when you're standing on that stage, that has to be a career highlight. And the speech you delivered was just incredible. Take me back to that day.
When I first, so I'm a TED Talk, like I've been watching and listening to TED Talk since probably 2012, I would say. And that was always a bucket list goal of mine. And I remember when my PR and my agent called, and they were like, we have this opportunity for you to, and they said TED Talk. And I was like, oh my goodness. And, I've read all the books about delivery and how you're not supposed to have note cards or teleprompters, and it's supposed to be a talk, and the time limit, time constraints. So I knew all of that. But as we got closer, I started getting more and more nervous. I'm telling you, Ernie, that TED Talk, 3 days before, I was on a flight back from New York to LA, and I got so nervous. I called my wife and I was like, I don't think I can do it. She was like, come on, like you're never nervous. I was petrified.
It did not show for a second.
The rehearsal, I bombed.
Really?
I bombed the rehearsal. I bombed it. Like, it was awful. I had people looking at me like, are you sure she's going to be able to do it? And I was able to practice for 2 days. And I'm telling you that I had more nerves than before game 4. Like, it was.
Was there an audience during the rehearsal, or just a few people sitting around?
There were a few people during the rehearsal. It was the heads of TED Talk were there, which made me even more nervous. But I bombed it, and I kind of came out and was trying to reassure them that I would be ready in 2 days to do it. But I was so nervous, and, I went and practiced the next 2 days. They had like speaker rooms set up, and whew.
But it's, but it's a different animal when it's live and you're there and it's an audience and you can make eye contact and you can see that certain things you're saying are resounding with people. that is such an impetus to and such a relaxer. It always has been for me, at least, in doing a lot of public speaking, not at a TED Talk, but when you can see that what you're saying is resting on them, and it's like, it's not a bunch of fidgeting, it's a bunch of, hey, give me more. That takes away a lot of that nervousness, does it not?
It takes away a lot of that nervousness, but also, sorry, going away from what I just have to tell you this. So there were two people that we listened to before our games. So I always listen to your speech. You gave a speech, and this is, oh my goodness, this is back in, I want to say like 2015 or something like that. And you gave a speech. It was so impactful. So I will say I listened to that speech before the playoffs, and it was talking about how, your teammates and how vital and crucial and how your job is to make your teammates better.
Yeah.
And it just really, it really inspired us. So James Wade, our head coach, we always listen, like I would always listen to your speech on the way to the game. And Kevin Garnett, he sent me a voice note one time about putting fear and building that fear and raising that fear in your opponent. Because, your job as an opponent is to grow that fear. And so I think in going into these speeches, the reason why I was so nervous was because I realized that I had a chance to be this, what you all are to me, to other people. And so I think it's like that weight of understanding how impactful those speeches have been in it. And your speech in Alabama, I mean, I even text you about it. Like your speech in Alabama was, my daughter was glued to the television. So I think it's just realizing how impactful those speeches are.
Yeah, well, you nailed yours. I'm just telling you, it was sensational.
Yeah. Thank you.
Does Layla still have my pig?
Pig is gone, Chuck. It's on a prairie.
I told you. So it's not a joke. We're in the studio one day, and her daughter has a pet pig.
Yeah.
And I says, when we gonna eat him? I said, pigs aren't pets. They're edible pets. So let me know.
You can tell how amused that Candace is by
his name again?
Retelling of this story.
His name is, we're not doing past tense, he's still alive. His name is Boo.
Boo? I cannot
My daughter named him.
I cannot wait to have him for dinner one night. So let me know hey, I'll bring a nice bottle of vodka, Redmond vodka, and then I'll bring some wine for you ladies, and we'll sit there, and I just want the ears and the snout.
Yeah, I know.
Ernie,
I know. Hey, lastly, before we let you go, I love watching you and Lefko and D Wade, Shaq. Lefko says I've got to ask you about playing in the freezing cold in China.
Oh, gosh. Listen, when I tell you, I was trying to make my decision whether I was going to play another year overseas or do television. And that year made me realize that I wanted to do television. It was the coldest. We had on coats, hats. We had heaters on the bench because in the south of China, they act surprised when it gets cold every year. And so they don't have heat in the gym. And you know how cold, if something sits, it's much colder almost inside than it is out. Ernie, that was why I'm at Turner. That's why I'm here.
Hey,
it's because of that moment.
But Candace,
there's got to be something better.
Is that harder to play basketball in that weather? Sometimes it's cold in the studio, and we get through it.
Yeah, we do, Chuckster. We've had some tough nights.
Me and Ernie have some rough nights.
We've kind of bundled. We kind of huddled together.
Yes, yeah. And we have blankets. We have blankets on our legs under the desk. It's freezing in the studio sometimes.
So they must have it nice on Tuesday nights.
Yes.
They must take all the heat on Tuesday nights. We sympathize with you. We know how hard it is to rough through being cold.
Listen. Have you ever jammed your finger in a cold gym? On the ball that's like a rock? I'm just telling you that I would rather be in the studio, or I'd rather gain a little weight drinking and eating with Chuck than go play in one of those cold gyms again.
Before we let you go, I got one more basketball question. 2 basketball questions.
Uh-oh.
Who's the best player you ever played with, and who's the best player you ever played against?
It's a really great question.
I'm full of them. Watch TNT on Thursday nights.
Oh gosh, I can't believe I just said that. It flipped out.
Man, alive.
The best player I've ever played with, Diana Taurasi and myself were on the same team over in Russia. And I think her passing ability and her ability to always make the correct play, you know, even though sometimes you're like, D, just shoot it, you know, but if somebody hedges, she's going to come off and make the right, you know, read. And so I think it was a lot of fun playing with her because, you know, her court vision and her ability to make the right play. I think the toughest opponent I've ever played against, to be honest with you, was probably a Simone Augustus. I mean, we've battled at LSU, Tennessee. We battled, you know, LA against Minnesota Lynx. And Money Moan, she would put up 30 easy. I mean, had the highest release. It was tough contest, handles, go to the basket, pull up, mid-range. She extended to the 3 late in her career. So I think that's probably, in terms of rivalry, the toughest battles. Hey, Chuck, I got a question for both of you all. Okay, so we still don't have a baby name, okay? So will you have, like, you got 10 seconds and you got to come up with a first and middle name, okay? So Chuck, you're first.
Sydney.
Okay, but there's 2 names.
Oh,
so Sydney.
So we having a boy?
It's a boy.
Sydney Michael.
Okay.
Ernest Maverick.
Nope, nobody's naming their kid Ernie.
Ernest Maverick.
Ernest Maverick. I like it.
Hey, no, can you call my daughter and tell her to tell me what the sex is?
Oh, she knows?
Oh, no, they're waiting. And so she was home visiting. I says, are y'all going to find out what the sex is? She said, no, Dad, we want to be surprised. I says, you're pregnant. It's not a surprise. Let your dad know what you're having. But they want to wait and be surprised. I says, how the hell can you be surprised when you're pregnant?
What do you think it is?
Oh, hey, everybody needs a little Chuckster in their life.
I know. Hey, Candace, I know. What are you going to say? You're going to say,
There's only one
guys,
Chuck.
thanks for having me on. Bye. That's what you're going to say. I appreciate you.
Thank you, darling.
Thank you,
I appreciate
Candace.
y'all. See you soon.
Okay.
Back at you. See you.
I could have said Charles Wade.
Wade.
I could have, but I didn't. But
Travis
wait,
Abernathy.
I know. Wait, why would you name your kid Ernie?
I didn't.
You said Ernest.
I know. I didn't.
Okay.
I'm just saying she should.
Oh,
Ernest Maverick.
I'm just glad you didn't name Eric Ernie. Ooh, boy, that would have been painful.
You know, his son is named Ernest Everett Johnson.
But they call him Everett.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because nobody want to name their kid Ernie. Might as well be called Henry.
What's wrong with Henry?
No, please don't name your kid Henry.
Sorry, Mr. Aaron.
Oh no, unless you're
You are
and
a
he called himself
knucklehead.
Hank, didn't he?
You are a knucklehead.
He called himself Hank, didn't he?
You are a
Rest in peace to one of the greatest ever, Mr.
Man,
Aaron. He called himself Hank, didn't he? He didn't want to be called Henry.